Hello, thanks everyone for making the time to join us today. We're going to go ahead and get things started on today's webinar. A little bit of housekeeping, just a quick note that we will not have time to address any live questions today, but we certainly encourage everyone to use the GoToWebinar chat to submit any questions that you do have, and we'll make sure that we follow up with each of those after the session. We're also going to be sending out a recording of this session as a follow-up to all attendees, so be sure to look out for that. My name is Will Hardy, Practice Lead for Intranets and Employee Portals at Habanero. And in my work with clients across North America, the conversations are increasingly turning to the impact and implications of AI in the intranet space. So I'm glad you could join us today to talk more about that subject. The goal for today is really to explore how AI is starting to transform the world of intranets and employee comms. There's obviously a lot of bold predictions around how AI will transform everything in our lives, and it's frankly a little equal parts exciting and terrifying at the same time. But today we're going to focus in on some real-world practical examples of how AI can be leveraged at your organization. And with all the conversations around AI's potential to disrupt how we work, we are starting to hear some executives raise questions like, will AI replace the need for intranet altogether? And perhaps can AI on its own give our employees access to everything they need? And no doubt these are logical questions to ask. But if you're a communicator, you probably already know that in the era of AI, intranets serve a crucial role for organizations that AI doesn't replace. For starters, intranets provide a trusted source of well-organized content. There's a lot of thought and governance that's put into the content that's posted on your intranet, and that is something that AI doesn't replace. It's also an intentional a place where you can intentionally curate organizational content and stories for employees to really stay focused on what's most important at the time. Also helps employees to understand an organization's culture, purpose, and direction. And this is especially important for new employees. And lastly, it offers that central hub of employee connection with their colleagues. All of these things AI doesn't replace. It will, however, see significant impacts in the ways in which users find information, interact with content, and perform tasks. It will also impact how content authors create, manage, and present content on an intranet. Where can AI be most beneficial to an intranet? Well, we really feel there's the fact that intranets and AI can be better together. There's massive potential for intranets to really harness the power and potential of AI and ultimately make for better experiences for employees and make life easier for intranet teams as well. AI has the power to really unearth content that's hard to find and would otherwise be hard to get to without asking a colleague for more information and tricky to find in a simple keyword search. AI also gives the power to assist in the content creation process and make that process a lot more effortless and efficient. It increases productivity and self-sufficiency for employees and content authors alike, and it automates what would otherwise be repetitive and mundane tasks. There are obviously many different AI models out there, but the examples we'll be talking about today are all achieved leveraging Microsoft's Copilot platform. Microsoft have steadily integrated Copilot and its AI capabilities across Microsoft 365 and all of the productivity tools within, and SharePoint is no exception. The integration largely shows up directly within the SharePoint UI navigation, but more custom scenarios can always be achieved using what's called Copilot Studio. And as compared to other platforms, other AI platforms, Microsoft has a real distinct advantage with its native intelligence of employee interactions, connections, and content that is shared across other productivity tools like Outlook, Teams, and Viva Engage. Before we get into the scenarios, there's a couple of points to consider when looking to leverage AI in the context of an intranet. The first is that AI certainly isn't perfect. While Copilot has advanced tremendously from where it was even a year ago, and it continues to get better, it will never truly be perfect. And we've all seen the AI fails and missteps. AI should never be, in our opinion, the only means to find information. AI is not always necessarily the right tool for the job, and accuracy of the results should always be verified. The second point is that we're on a point in time that we're really seeing a real steep curve in terms of product improvements, innovation, and advancements in the capabilities that are offered. This really underscores the need for organizations to continuously stay on top of what's possible, experiment often, and evaluate the suitability of AI for the scenarios you have in your organization. If you ran a Copilot trial or an evaluation, say a year ago, which we saw many organizations do, we've certainly seen the capabilities increase quite a lot over this past year. So what you would have sort of come to conclude about Copilot a year ago was quite different from today. This time last year, Habanero's experience was that the generative content provided by Copilot wasn't really all that useful or reliable. And fast forward to today, and we find that Copilot is a huge boost to our team's productivity. That's really been a combination of us finding the logical use cases where it makes sense to use AI, the AI models themselves and the capabilities rapidly advancing, as well as at the same time, the more robust integration across the other productivity tools that we use today, like Teams and Outlook. The next point is that AI is only really as relevant and accurate as the content sources it draws logic from. So in an intranet AI scenario, it's actually much easier to define what those content sources are, but content hygiene and content governance are as important as ever, if not more important. Next is that employee expectations of AI availability in the workplace will steadily increase. We think that demand from employees for AI capabilities will steadily increase as it becomes more integrated in our personal lives. In fact, we think the demand's already there and enterprises are generally in a catch-up mode.
As an indicator of this, if you look at ChatGPT adoption, it had 800 million weekly active users as of April 2025, which is double what it had in February at 400 million. It processes over 200 billion queries daily.
At the same time, internet search patterns are changing too. Recent data suggests that almost 60% of searches in the US and the EU actually result in 0 clicks, meaning that not progressing beyond the search results screen. And in many cases, this is because the AI response is now front and center on that result screen and really no need to navigate further. So with those points to consider, let's jump into the example scenarios of where we think AI will be leveraged in today's modern intranets. The examples we'll talk about today include, firstly, internet search assistants, embedded agents, generative content suggestions, using AI for page creation and section creation, as well as AI-generated FAQ. So let's get started by looking at our first scenario, which is the internet search assistant. Just to describe this a little bit, this is sometimes referred to as an intranet chatbot. And generative AI chatbots are more advanced than what would have been considered a conventional chatbot, which simply use keyword matching with pre-programmed answers. This is a natural language search alternative to traditional keyword search. And internet chatbots or search assistants generally search the content of the internet itself, but can be extended to other content sources outside of the internet as well. And these are generally added to an intranet using Copilot Studio and code updates to the templates. As compared to traditional search, which most intranets would have, it's a couple of things to consider here. If you're searching for simple keywords, such as vacation and time off policy, you're probably better off using traditional keyword search to find that information. For other scenarios, though, AI is going to be a better bet. An example of that would be more obscure or nuanced subjects, or where you might want to have summarization of the subject matter, such as asking the bot to sort of describe what is our vacation and request process, or other scenarios like that. Similarly, if you have a prompt like find me all proposals, which include change management as a deliverable, for example, that's really information that would be hard for search to find, but where AI does a great job of being able to mine that content and suggest results. So what we're going to do now is bring up a demo environment. We'll be using this live demo environment for all of our scenarios. This is actually a SharePoint Online site, a communication site with our Go intranet platform running on top of it. Go is built by Habanero. It includes a suite of intranet capabilities that really extend SharePoint Online further than what you can do out of the box, and makes for a better experience, and one that is more robust and enterprise ready. As this is a SharePoint site, we have the global search at the top, which most would be familiar with, and that indexes the content of the site. We actually hear that most customers really like the modern SharePoint search experience, and it's a big step forward from what it used to be. Within Go, however, we also have our Springboard menu, which we see on the right-hand side here. And this gives us access to tools and quick links to different applications that we might want to have quick reference to. What we've also done using Copilot Studio is added a site search assistant, and we're calling that Lumiere. So as I click on that, we see that Lumiere loads up. It's got some initial default prompts that it's suggesting to us. Suggested prompts are often very useful in encouraging adoption, generating or suggesting intent for this functionality. So just an example, I'm going to ask Lumiere to summarize our work from home policy. So what it's doing right now is going to scan the contents of the intranet and hopefully come back to me with a summary of our policy on working from home. And there you can see that it's gone and sort of looked at the content, pulled out some key highlights, the benefits and best practices, and come back to us with this information. Of course, we'd need to verify and just do our research and make sure this seems correct. It also has provided the source from where it's gathered this information, so that's always really good to note as a reference. So that's a fairly basic scenario of using a search assistant. I can also do another scenario where I'm going to say, what are this year's stat holidays? And now it's going to actually go and look one step further, look in the content, figure out where this information is mentioned, and come back to us hopefully with a list of the stat holidays that we have. And there we go. It's sort of highlighted the stat holidays that we have throughout the year, the specific dates that they fall on, and also offering us more information on time off here. The exciting part about this is really the potential to go one step further. You can imagine someone who might be asking for a vacation request process and what does that look like, and then having the bot actually able to submit a new request to Workday or whatever your HRS system happens to be. And that's entirely possible with tools like Copilot Studio to extend this further. Our second scenario example explores embedded AI site agents. These are slightly different from the previous example, the site search assistants, in that AI agents actually query a specific site or knowledge source that you want to sort of narrow the field down to a trusted content source. It's a bit easier to ensure that the generated content is accurate if you know the specific source that you're pointing the agent to. And you can really go further in establishing your predetermined prompts based on the known type of content that you're dealing with. So let's switch over to our demo environment again. And here we have our environment. We're actually going to navigate into our policy and resources area. This is another function of Go, which is all about a knowledge management and having a knowledge repository, in this case, of policies and resources. I have the ability to search for that content. I can browse by metadata. This gives a pretty good experience in terms of findability and finding content that might exist within the site. But we can take it one step further by having a site agent that is really focused on this site and the content within. So I'll open up the site agent. It's accessible in the header. And it kind of calls out that it's looking at this specific site, policy and resources. In this example, I'm actually going to ask it to summarize our corporate vehicle policy. I know that this policy exists, but maybe I just want to have it sort of summarized for me and pull out the key highlights. So I'll execute that prompt. And right now it's going through the contents of this knowledge base, finding that policy, assuming it exists, and coming back to me with a summary of the key highlights. Yeah, here we go. It's building that content for me as we speak. And as I scan through that content, I can see it's done a pretty good job of pulling out the key points and key points to summarize around this particular policy. Again, it's identified the source content from where it's getting this information from. And that's really useful. But maybe what I want to know now is, okay, well, I've seen that policy before, but perhaps I want to see some recent changes that might have occurred to this policy so that I know what's new. So I can do that as well. I'll say summarize recent changes. So I'll ask the agent to go and summarize the recent changes to our corporate vehicle policy. And let's see what it brings back. The nice thing about the fact that this is integrated within SharePoint is that it knows the different versions of this page and policy document, that it's able to compare and contrast on different versions. So in this example, I can see that actually it's had some recent changes as of late. They've updated the policy to include a note about self-driving cars, the fact you've got to report traffic violations immediately when you return the vehicle, and a few other changes that have been changed on this policy recently. So that's a real time saver in being able to quickly scan a document and know kind of things that you should know around recent changes. Another benefit of this kind of capability is the ability to compare not just different versions of one single policy, but also compare different policies altogether. So I know that in our policy knowledge base here, we actually have an overtime policy, and we have one for both unionized and non-unionized employees. So maybe perhaps I want to sort of understand what the key differences are between overtime for those two different audience groups. So what I'll do is I'll actually submit another prompt here. Out of my prompt, so how does our overtime policy differ between unionized and non-unionized employees? So let's see if it's smart enough to bring that back to us. So it's, as we speak, it's analyzing these two policy documents and coming back with sort of a summary of the key differences here. So there you go. We can see some notable differences. So difference in sort of hours, some 48 to 60, and other terms that are different between these two documents. So that's a huge time saver in terms of quick summary and scanning of these policies without having to actually go in detail and read those documents or pages. In this scenario, we're going to look at ways that we can leverage AI to generate content suggestions based on existing page copy or other sources, such as a meeting recording or PowerPoint presentation, to actually create content for us. AI can make these suggestions. It can adjust the preferred length or tone and help you to really improve the content that you create and also make for an easier process. In this example, we're going to show how intranet content authors can leverage AI to generate content for them, either based on existing page copy or other inputs, such as a meeting recording or other source. AI can create that content, and then you can use AI also to adjust existing content, such as preferred length or tone. So we'll go back to our demo environment. In this case, we're actually going to go ahead and create a new page. So I'm going to navigate to our news area. And then in this scenario, we've actually recently had a new employee join our organization. I had a chance to meet with that employee. His name is Ben. That was a good meeting. I had a good chance to learn about Ben, about some of his background, his personal interests, the type of role he's going to be performing at our organization. But what I now need to do is actually create a new page and help other employees at our organization learn more about Ben too. So what I've done is I've actually created a new page here. I'll give it a title. I'll say, welcome to the team, Ben. And I can add things like a photo, all kinds of content that might be interesting on this page. But for now, what I'm actually going to do is use AI to look at that meeting recording of that meeting that I had with Ben and pull out some information that would be useful. So we've got the option here as I'm drafting the copy to draft with AI. And it'll ask me what I want to include. I'm actually going to pull in a prompt here that I already have. I'll add my prompt, and this prompt says, create a news article about our new Vice President of Communications, Ben Skelton. The article should include Ben's background, what Ben will be doing in our company, some facts about Ben, and use inclusive, fun language that only uses details about Ben from our meetings, emails, and chats. So that's really giving the Copilot AI the context and the inputs to create this content for us. So I'll go ahead and execute that and see what it brings back. So there we go. It's come back to us. It's got a pretty good summary of the meeting that we had. It's highlighted Ben's background, the kind of role and focus that Ben will have in our organization, and also pulled out some fun facts about Ben that were mentioned during the meeting. The fact that he cheering on the Blue Jays, and the fact that he loves airplanes and travel, and some different things like that were really part of our meeting as sort of an aside, but things that Copilot can actually pick up on as a scan of that meeting recording. You can also use inputs like an email or other sort of sources that might also have this information contained in with it. If I'm not happy with this, I can make further changes. Say, for example, if I want to make it more concise or change the tone a little bit. This is really just a suggested starting point. And you can imagine if this is a simple scenario where it's a new employee sort of welcome message, but if you had like a new product or a new campaign where you had a meeting with a presentation file or meeting recordings with a lot of different details that you want to be able to quickly use AI to scan and suggest copy, it would be a real significant time saver for you. So from here, I can continue to edit this page and publish it as needed. All right, let's move on to our next example, AI-assisted page creation and editing. So in this scenario, we're actually going to leverage AI to create a new content page from scratch, and as well as do things like add a new section to that page. And I can choose from preferred templates as a starting point. I can define things like page topics and other resources that would inform the AI logic, what it goes on. And then I can adjust things like preferred length and tone as needed. So we'll move back to our demo environment here. In this case, we're going to add another news page. And perhaps I actually want to create a new page in this section that's going to actually summarize this, the topic of this webinar. I have a PowerPoint deck that I want to use as the basis for that page. So I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and create the page. I'll select to actually build this page with AI. I should note this is currently a feature that's in preview that should hopefully soon be in production. So I'll go ahead and select that. It'll ask me, and I'll be able to choose from different templates, whether different news posts or pages. At this time, the templates I have available to me are out of the box ones that are provided by Microsoft. We know that most organizations are going to want to use specific templates that they have designed. So hopefully that'll be coming soon. But for today, what I'll do is I'll actually choose the topic template, since this is the topic of this webinar, which I want to create a page around. And then we need to basically give AI the background information and the source in which it's going to base this page off of. So I get a preview here, but it allows me to add resources. So I'm actually going to take the PowerPoint deck from this presentation and use that as a basis for this page. I'll give it a topic name, intranets and AI, and I can give it other information that it's going to go on here. And SharePoint. So this basically is building out the logic for a page. I can then go ahead and say, what kind of tone do I want for this page? And what kind of length? I'll make this concise. And what's notable here is it's actually going to create this page as a private draft, which is a really good idea. Make sure that we're happy with it before we actually publish this page to everyone. So I'll go ahead and create. And what it's going to do right now is it's going to take that template that I asked it to use. It's going to analyze the PowerPoint file that I gave it as a source. And it's going to come back to us with the suggested page layout here. So I'll give it a second to do that. So here's our first section. It's given a title. It's given the first section, and it's actually taken copy from the slides within the deck. It's adding things like images. You can kind of see the status at the bottom here as it's working its way through. Everything that it creates here can be edited. So that's really nice in that you can use this as a starting point, make further changes and edits as you need to. So give that a second to complete. Drafting last section here. And there we go. So we can have a look at our page. If we're happy with it, we can publish it. More than likely, we're going to have to make some further changes to it. We're going to say we're going to keep this one for now. In some cases, maybe we'll want to update some of these images here, right? So you can easily do that. So this has the potential to be a real time saver. We do think it's fairly early days in terms of this capability. Like we said, it'd be nice to have things like an organizational page templates to be able to leverage those in addition to the out-of-the-box ones. Okay, so our last scenario is looking at AI-generated FAQ content. So here we'll use Copilot to analyze a source file to suggest logical FAQ categories, questions, and answer content, and as well as automatically create the display of content on the page, which can be a huge time saver in terms of time and effort to create that manually. So we'll move over to our demo environment here. And here we have a page which sort of details our medical and prescription plan. We've got sort of initial information on coverage, how to enroll in the benefits plan here. We also have this particular topic has a number of PDF documents which contains more information on our group benefit plan here. If I bring up this one, for example, it's a PDF document. It's got a lot of information. This is actually 39 pages, but it's not exactly easy to consume for someone looking for kind of answers to information. It's a little dry. It'd be sure nice if we could basically take the information and content in this long document and use it as a basis to create some FAQ questions and answers. So thankfully, with Copilot, we can do just that. If I go back to this page, I'll move it into edit mode here. Once I'm in edit mode, I can sort of scroll down, and perhaps I want to add some FAQ copy in here. I'll go ahead and add a new web part. And one of the ones that's available from Microsoft is the FAQ web part. Again, this one's in preview, but should hopefully be out in production soon. Okay, so we look at the FAQ web part, which is now being added to the page. We can see that we've got the option to provide a source file, give it a purpose. So we'll go ahead and grab that PDF document that we looked at previously and use that as a source file. I'm going to say our group health plan, and then we can give it a purpose. In this case, it's FAQ around a policy. And we can give other details if we want to. I'm going to run this process, and what it's going to do right now is it's going to scan that PDF document and come back to me initially with some suggested categories for our FAQs. So we'll give it a second here. So there we go, it's come back. So we've got categories like eligibility, coverage, dependents, and so on. If needed, I can add an additional category, but these actually look pretty good. So those are something I'll move forward. The next step is going to be to draft the questions within each of those categories. So again, it'll execute, scan that document, come back to me with the suggested questions it thinks make sense. And just like categories, if needed to, I can change the wording, I can add additional questions, but these actually look pretty good as well. So last step here is actually to draft the answers that would make sense for these questions. So I'll give it a second to do that. And it's come back to us with the copy that it suggests as the answers. Again, you're going to want to make sure that you really validate this information is correct. But you can imagine sort of the amount of time this has saved us in not having to do this all manually to scan the documents and really, all the thought process and reasoning that went into this. It's pretty nice to have that automated for us. In terms of presentation, it's presenting this in sort of an accordion menu. There's different options in terms of the presentation of this content itself. Okay, so now that that is completed, we can see that this new web part has been added. We can make changes, and if we're happy, we can say we're going to keep it, and that'll save the web part to the page. So that brings us to the end of our scenarios that we're covering today. Hopefully that was a source of inspiration in terms of areas that you can use AI today to leverage on your intranet to both improve the end user search experience, as well as the experience for content authors who are creating pages and content. So I guess we'll just say in wrapping up, really now is the time to really experiment with AI and use cases and determining what makes sense for your organization. You really want to do research to understand what your users might be struggling with on your intranet, whether findability or whatnot. You can use things like intranet analytics to be able to get a sense for that. And perhaps AI has a role in helping with that. You're going to want to get familiar with the fine art of prompt creation and the best way to use AI and inform it to bring back the information that makes sense. And it's really relatively easy to take advantage of Copilot integration, given it's within the SharePoint UI navigation. It's not that technically complex or hard to achieve the things that we showed today. And lastly, this is such a fast-paced, evolving space. You're really going to want to stay on top of how AI is advancing and just the potential for it in your organization. We welcome any questions, any of the topics we covered today. Certainly welcome you to reach out to me anytime and happy to follow up. So yeah, thanks for joining the webinar and have a great day.